Do you go today?
No.
Oh. I thought that was Emily asking for it.
It was.
Okay, but I get it now.
Yo. Yo.
Everybody else got them. You must have snuck in, Sarah.
No. Ready?
Yep.
On February 14th, 2018, in Parkland, Florida, majority Stoneman Douglas High School, 17 people were killed. The students, a football coach, an athletic director. We've been through so many of these tragedies in America, like obviously 9/11, the Vegas shooting, and now this high school. And for the first time, I felt so angry. I was tired of praying. I was tired of giving my thoughts. I know that sounds not very sympathetic, but I wanted change. And then Emma Gonzalez spoke at the anti-gun rally, and I had so much hope from this high school student. I think we have stereotypes that they're immature and they don't know what they're talking about. But for the first time, I had so much hope for our generation. So this is her speech at the anti-gun rally in Fort Lauderdale, days after the shooting. We are going to be the kids you read about in textbooks. Not because we're going to be another statistic about mass shootings in America, but because we're going to be the last. Just as David said, we are going to be the last. Just as Tinker versus Des Moines, we are going to change the law. That's going to be majority Stoneman Douglas High School in those textbooks, and it's going to be due to the tireless efforts of the school board, the faculty, the family members, and the students. The students who are dead, the students still in the hospital, the students who are now suffering from PTSD, the students who had panic attacks at the vigil because the helicopters wouldn't leave us alone, hovering over us 24 hours a day. There is one tweet I would like to call attention to. So many signs that the Florida shooter was mentally disturbed, even expelled for bad and erratic behavior, must always report such instances to authority again and again. We did, time and time again. It was no surprise to any of us to know that he was the shooter. Those talking about how we should not have ostracized him, you did not know this kid, okay? We did. We know that they're claiming mental health issues, and I'm not a psychologist, but we need to pay attention to the fact that this was not just a mental health issue. He would not have harmed that many people with a knife. And how about we stop blaming the victims for something that was the student's fault? The fault of the people who let him buy the guns in the first place. Those at the gun shows who encouraged him to buy accessories for his guns to make them fully automatic. The people who didn't take them away from him when they knew he expressed homicidal tendencies. And I'm not talking about the FBI. I'm talking about the people who he lived with. I'm talking about the neighbors who saw him outside holding guns. If the president wants to come up to me and tell me to my face that it was a terrible tragedy and how it should have never happened, and maintain telling us how nothing is going to be done about it, I'm going to happily ask him how much money he has received from the National Rifle Association. You want to know something? I already know. $30 million. And divided that by the number of gunshot victims in the United States alone, that comes out to being $5,800. Is that how much these people are worth to you, Trump? If you don't do anything from preventing this to occur, that number of gunshot victims will go up, and the number that they are worth will go down, and we will be worthless to you. To every politician who is taking donations from the NRA, shame on you. If your money was as threatened as us, would your first thought be, how is this going to reflect my campaign? Which should I choose? Or would you choose us? And if you choose us, would you act like it for once? You know what would be a good way to act like it? I have an example of how not to act like it. In February of 2017, President Trump repealed an Obama-era regulation that would have made it easier to block the sale of firearms to people with certain mental illnesses. From that interaction that I had with the shooter before the shooting And from what I know now, I don't really know if he was mentally ill. Of course, I wrote this before Delaney said. Delaney did say that he was diagnosed. I don't need a psychologist, and I don't need to be a psychologist to know that repealing that regulation was a really dumb idea. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa was the sole sponsor on this bill that stops the FBI from performing background checks on people to be mentally ill. And now he's stating for the record, well, it's a shame the FBI isn't doing background checks on those mentally ill people. Duh! You took that opportunity away from us last year. The people in the government who were voted into power are lying to us. And us kids seem to be the only one who notice, and our parents to call BS. Companies trying to make caricatures of the teenagers these days, saying that we are all self-involved and trend-obsessed, and they hush us into submission when our message does not reach the nation, we call BS. Politicians in the House and the Senate seats, funded by the NRA, telling us nothing could have been done to prevent this, we call BS. They say gun laws do not decrease gun violence, we call BS. They say a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun, we call BS. They say no laws could have prevented the hundreds of senseless tragedies that have occurred, we call BS. That us kids don't know what we're talking about, that we're too young to understand how the government works, we call BS. If you agree, register to vote, contact your local congresspeople, and give them a piece of your mind. Thank you.
Who's next?